Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Amin Davoodi. I'm an assistant professor of bilingual and ESL education at the University of Texas Permian Basin. First, I would like to thank Dr. Rajai for inviting me to share my ideas about the use of AI for academic writing and research. I would like to talk about the Gartner hype cycle because I find it absolutely fascinating and relevant to the current situation that we have with AI. So this was developed by Gartner in 1995, and basically this model outlines five phases that new technologies typically kind of, traverse as they move from inception to widespread acceptance. So what's interesting and compelling about this model is the fact that it is highly relevant to the current situation of AI that we are dealing with, especially as academicians in academia. We're basically witnessing an explosion of tools designed to assist with writing essays, finding articles, analyzing data, doing a statistical analysis. But it's really hard to keep up with all these tools and figure out which one is good for what purpose. So I think it's a good idea to look at this framework and this hype cycle so that we realize where we are in terms of our approach and our reception of AI. And then we can basically build upon this and argue why we are kind of bombarded by several different AI tools basically every single week. So as you can see, the journey kind of starts with the innovation trigger, which basically is the moment that the technology is kind of born. This is when a breakthrough sparks interest, often through a prototype or maybe sometimes even a proof of concept that kind of hints a transformative potential. We can think of a lot of historical examples, like the first personal computers, for example, in the 70s, or even calculator, an example that a lot of people use these days when they're talking about the use of AI. Or even we can talk about the initial, rollout of the internet and the dot-com bubble, for example, during the 90s. So it's basically a phase of excitement, and a lot of, developers are still experimenting. A lot of investors are paying attention. And there are obviously some early adopters who imagine that this technology could be the next, big breakthrough and the next big invention. So when it comes to AI in academia, and especially for academic writing and research, which is kind of like the main topic of this presentation, this phase, in my opinion, kicked off with tools like early versions of natural language processors, and think of basic grammar checkers evolving into systems that could later kind of generate very simple texts or basically help you find certain type of words and sentences within a document, mostly using like bibliography and other academic related activities. The possibilities are obviously endless, but the idea is basically that this innovation trigger can actually provide sometimes false hopes and unfulfilled promises as well, because it quickly turns into the next phase of this cycle, which is the peak of inflated expectation. And in peak of inflated expectation, basically, we are dealing with a lot of enthusiasm, whether it comes from like teachers or users or students in this regard when it comes to AI for academic, writing and research. So we see a lot of enthusiasm. I think, in my opinion, the past few years, specifically, maybe I would say like 2 or 3 years, since 3 years ago, I think we have been kind of in this stage because we cannot say that the innovation trigger happened 2 or 3 years ago. Obviously, we have been using AI in different forms in our life. Maybe some of us, we haven't been aware that we have been using AI, but the innovation trigger, obviously, even for the AI tools which we use in academia these days, they date back to many, many years ago. But literally, the peak of inflated expectation, I would argue, started with the birth of ChatGPT, which is kind of like the mascot of large language models, at least for academicians and scholars. So I would say that we are still in this phase because we see a lot of enthusiasm from a lot of people, and unfortunately, a lot of people make big claims about the possibilities of, for example, replacing teachers with AI. A lot of like claims without necessary and sufficient data and arguments basically to back up those claims. But let's just focus again on using AI for writing and research. So in this phase, which, as I said, it feels to me really current, a lot of new tools emerge almost daily and constantly. So some of them can write full essays, others can help you to improve your grammar, others can help you to solve like complex math or even statistical, problems. And the academic world, I would say, has kind of a split reactions because some educators, some of my colleagues, I talk with many of them, on daily basis about AI. Some of them are all for it, and some are totally against it. So uh, I would consider this, but with all these issues, a very good opportunity for us to kind of navigate and see where we are as users and basically what we believe is good for us as individuals, as researchers and writers. But obviously, there is a gap in this stage, and still a lot of us have doubts, which is a good thing. That's a natural thing to have, especially when you're dealing with a new technology. Uh, but we can also argue that maybe some of us, have passed that stage and now we are in trough of disillusionment. It's a big claim because this model is not just about individuals, although we can apply it to individuals, but mostly this is about like the general public and the general attitude towards the technology. But I believe some of us in academia have moved towards this stage of trough of disillusionment, which basically it's like a like a reality check, I would say. Because the initial excitement kind of wanes as the technology's, shortcomings become undeniable. And for, many innovations, this is just normal. It means just practical challenges emerge and, new versions. Developers try to come up with better versions of their product. We can think of other examples. It's not just about the AI. For example, virtual reality headsets. I don't know if you remember or not, but uh, this we started observing a lot of issues regarding motion sickness, for example, or even the early smartwatches. We dealt with like kind of dismal battery life, as I would say. So usually early adopters become kind of frustrated and disappointed because all of their excitement kind of, now can go away because of the issues and the challenges that they face. But it's a very important stage because without this trough of disillusionment, we wouldn't be able to identify the problems and work on improving the product, whether it's about developing a better product or even about developing better strategies to use the product more effectively. With AI, for example, in academic settings, again, I would say we are seeing signs of this now because we can look at like these tools that generate, for example, research summaries. Some of them are great. You can use them obviously responsibly, and we will talk about that later. But we also realize that many of these tools kind of oversimplify findings and in some cases misinterpret data, and those who try to use large language models to find citations and resources dealt with hallucination and a lot of resources which actually don't exist in real life. So I would argue that we are probably most of us in this stage, which brings us to the next stage, which is the slope of enlightenment, which is a crucial stage when it comes to dealing with a new technology. And the reason is that here, although we haven't really and fully reached the potentials of that technology, and we haven't reached an agreement on how to use it, and we haven't probably developed all the guidelines that we need, we can argue that we know what we want to do. That's the best way I can describe it. We are on our way. It's probably, we can say, a time of clarity. And I can give you an example. So let's think of social media, evolved from basically chaotic early platforms to structured tools for communication that we, most of us, use on daily basis. And we can also talk about like cloud storage, for example, which kind of became like over the years, kind of became like a I would say dependable backbone for a lot of businesses and even in the education sector. So in this stage, developers and users, refine the technology. Users identify sustainable applications and better approaches to deal with these technologies, and kind of like, they try to cut and grow more deliberate and informed approaches to using it. For AI in academic writing and research, this would mean tools tailored to, for example, I would say assist, not replace our efforts, perhaps suggesting precise edits to a draft or flagging basically like weak arguments or ungrammatical sentences, identifying those issues, or even sometimes maybe in the future, more reliable tools to find sources, for example, for literature review. Um, I would say guidelines hopefully would emerge. I know that a lot of universities are still working on developing guidelines regarding the use of AI. So hopefully by then we have a better understanding of how these AI tools are supposed to be used in academia. I think we are not there yet, but the flood of new tools and unresolved challenges keep us kind of anchored earlier in this cycle. And that would bring us to the next phase, which is the plateau of productivity. Just think about all these word processors that we use to type our articles and our essays, or all these cloud-based storage, platforms that we use like Google Drive to upload or and store our documents. I do not believe that these is we talk about how wonderful they are, or we talk about their novelty, because they have become such, normal aspects of our life that we do not even deal with them as new technology. So that's exactly the plateau of productivity, which is a stage where the technology becomes kind of stable and it's no longer a novelty, as I said. So for AI, I think when we will reach, hopefully in the future, that stage, that would mean that a lot of these AI platforms and tools that we are using now, I think they will be integrated in other computer software, and programs that people all around the world are using. For example, maybe large language models will be integrated into word processor. So while you're typing, you can also check the grammar, the structure, even ask for a better rephrasing of what you're typing and stuff like that. Some technology like what I described exists now, but it's not, as I said, it's still a novelty and it's not as stable as it should be. So hopefully in a few years, and I'm just guessing that probably by 2027, 2028, like within a couple of years, we will be able to reach that plateau of productivity stage. So again, looking back at this Gartner hype cycle, from trigger to plateau, I do believe that you know it really maps a technology's evolution with striking clarity. For the use of AI in academic writing and research, we are probably in a turbulent spot yet, as we are riding the highs of innovation and lows of disillusionment. And so the road ahead to me is a road ahead to enlightenment and to productivity, and hopefully to reach that plateau of productivity, which in my opinion also requires refinement and responsibility. And that's, on all of us. As I believe we are just a couple of years away from it. And so hopefully all of us try to contribute to this mission, whether it would be through innovative use of the AI platforms or just doing research and improving these platforms. Now that we talked about the hype cycle and we have a better idea of where we are in terms of our relationship and our reception of AI platforms, there might be another question. Why do we even need to worry about AI in education, and more specifically when it comes to writing? I think this is a very hot topic, and it can influence like a lot of teachers, a lot of researchers, and students. So I think we need to consider a lot of different factors. First, if you look at the study by Durga and others in 2023, we can realize that the emergence of tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or many other AI platforms actually, they have led to greater use of AI in students' academic writing. So this trend is understandable, to be honest. But at the same time, it brings a lot of attention to the ethical issues and to concerns that a lot of teachers have regarding cheating and, unethical and irresponsible use of AI as well. But basically, we know that these days the students are kind of drawn to technologies that can assist them with writing or drafting and refining their writings and their work, but at the same time, we know that there are many opportunities and there are a lot of misunderstanding about it. So that's a very important area that I believe we need to talk about. But this phenomenon also extends beyond students and beyond even academia. For example, Kim and Kim in 2022, they argued that teachers are also utilizing AI. So it's not just about students, it's teachers, it's professors, educators. And basically, the teachers use AI to enhance their not only writing and curriculum and syllabus design and material development, but also at the same time to basically enhance their overall teaching capabilities, which is a good thing, again, if it is being used responsibly and ethically. Uh, Similarly, Londatal 2023 also argued that there is another group of actually users of AI, and we're talking about researchers. So if we are dealing with a situation in which researchers, students, and teachers use AI for different aspects of their life and their job and their, and writing especially, I think there is no question whether we need to have more discussions like this on the importance and the opportunities and the challenges that AI brings into writing. So I think these are all good reasons why we need to have more training, more conversations regarding AI and writing. And basically, we can argue that the integration of AI into writing within the education system demands more serious attention, both from the members of this community as well as the policymakers and stakeholders. That's also very important. So the question that you can see in this slide is there adequate training on responsible AI use? In my personal experience as a teacher trainer, as a professor, as a researcher, I think the answer is likely not. Uh, Although a lot of people are talking about the use of AI for various academic purposes, I do not see enough training and actual hands-on workshops and trainings for both the students and educators and teachers and researchers. So I think that's a huge gap that we are dealing with. And again, it's not just about the students. We do not need only trainings for students. Students definitely need training and workshop, but also teachers and researchers need training as well. To just emphasize what Kim and Kim argued in the research study, teachers are adopting AI. They have already been using it. So we need more training even for teachers, as those are people who basically shape the learning attitudes and affect the learning habits of future students. And obviously, researchers, which includes student researchers as well, they need to be part of this discussion as well, so that we can all come up with better strategies to deal with the AI phenomenon in the first place, but at the same time benefit from all the advantages that it can bring to our life as writers. So we all have, to some extent, experiences regarding the use of AI for improving, our writing, especially academic writing. But it's always a good idea to look at the literature and see what recent research studies, have found regarding the benefits and disadvantages sometimes of using AI for academic writing. So The first study that you can see here is actually a very interesting study because they talk about the benefit of using AI platforms, AI tools for improving idea generation. Idea generation is a very tricky, I would say, aspect of academic writing and research, especially because at times we come up with ideas, we think they are good ideas for research projects, then we read articles from the literature, then we realize that, okay, a lot of people have done that. We need to add some novelty to it because always the goal of research and writing for research purposes is to add something new to the literature. So it can be confusing at times. It can be challenging. So it's always good to have an assistant to help us with the idea generation phase. So this study by Cardone et al. 2023, basically they found that AI platforms can help writers to improve their idea generation. So basically their point is that AI can somehow step like a collaborator, helping us streamline our work and come up with sharper, more original ideas. For those of us like racing against deadlines to trying to stand out in a project, that's pretty a big deal. It's like kind of like a shortcut to creativity without the burnout because at times you may feel yourself kind of stuck with one research project and one research idea. So it's always good to have an AI platform as an assistant. So basically, again, this is to remind us that AI can serve as an assistant, as a partner, as a collaborator, and it's not gonna obviously replace the researcher. But it's interesting to have a tool which can help you even improve your idea generation for research and for academic writing. So the second study that we have here is a study by Song and Song 2023, and it's a very interesting study because they talk about the fact that using AI platforms, if they are being used appropriately and the user knows how to benefit from them, can be really helpful to improve mechanics of writing, like grammar, vocabulary, but also other aspects of writing because they argue that it can help to improve like your proficiency in various aspects of writing, even organization, even coherence. So, as I said, we're not just talking about grammar. There are other platforms, both AI based and non-AI based, that can help you with grammar and spelling of the words. But imagine that you're hammering out a paper and you've got this tool kind of nudging you toward a tighter argument or swapping out a weak word for something more academic and more professional. So it's not doing the work for you again as a collaborator, as an assistant. It's more like a writing coach at times that's always on call, which is great to have that kind of support. So to me, that's very interesting, especially for higher ed students, both undergrad and graduate students who are kind of novice researchers and novice writers. So whether it's an essay or a proposal, or even it's just like a presentation, anything that makes, your writing more professional and more academic, I think is valuable. So we have another study here as well by Huang and Tan, 2023, in which they mostly focused on ChatGPT and argued that it can help basically researchers and scientists to produce meaningful research in a more efficient and effective manner. So it's a big claim. There are other studies who have like opposite ideas, but the fact that there is a tool that can help researchers and scientists to improve their work if they know how to use it, I think it's just fascinating. Especially when you consider all the ethical considerations. So if it is being used appropriately, if it is being used ethically, I think it's a great thing that we have. So for anyone working on a thesis or research project, if using AI is something which is acceptable in your university, in your institution, and obviously you have included that in your IRB if that is a requirement. So I think it's a great thing to have another level of support. And so you can basically improve your research and your academic writing, as I said, with these platforms, which is fascinating. In this slide, I would like to talk about the AI literacy framework by Mark Warshauer, who is a prominent scholar in the field of computer-assisted language learning. And this was part of his presentation at TELIC 2023 conference. So as you can see, there are 5 stages here. The first one is understand. Basically, he talks about the fact that users of these AI tools and emerging technologies you know, need to be familiar with the strengths and weaknesses, advantages and disadvantages of these platforms. And also they need to understand the biases that sometimes, these platforms have when it comes to producing outcome. The second step is access a range of AI tools appropriate for specific communication tasks. As I said, his focus is mostly on language learning, but this can be adopted and can be used in any other disciplines as well. So basically, we're talking about finding an appropriate tool to do certain tasks. And then the third one is prompt. I'm sure you have heard about prompt engineering, which is a big, thing in the world of AI education, because we know that two users who are using the same platform for the same task with the same data can get different results depending on the quality of the prompt. So that's why he talks about the strategies and search optimization to generate the most helpful content. Then we have the corroborate, which is the accuracy and truthfulness of content generated by AI. Basically, it's like a cross check or basically like a peer review, if I can use that term, so that you can make sure that the output that you're receiving from the AI platform is credible and reliable. And finally, incorporate. So you can basically incorporate the AI generated text into your own writing ethically and effectively. So he argues that you need to go through this model step by step so that you can be sure that you are not only using the AI platform appropriately, but also ethically and responsibly. Although this framework and model has a lot of advantages, and I really, really appreciate the way that he, kind of summarizes and talks about all these different steps that need to be taken when it comes to using new AI platforms. I believe researchers, especially novice researchers and graduate students, need a more detailed framework with kind of like a simpler language. So that's why I created a framework myself, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So in this slide, I would like to talk about a decision framework for integrating AI in research, which I personally developed. So in this framework, basically, my goal is to help student researchers, whether undergraduate or graduate, as well as even established researchers who are new to using technology and more specifically AI for research purposes, to basically provide them with a step-by-step guideline that can help them to make good decisions whether they need to use it or not to use it. Because to me, that is the most important question we're dealing with these days. Unfortunately, a lot of people, just because of the hype, they try to use AI without having background knowledge, without sometimes even knowing why they're using it. Because I know these days it's just cool to use AI for everything. So I decided to come up with a framework, which is, as I said, a step-by-step guideline that can help you to determine whether you need to use AI or not. If the answer is yes, how, basically why you need to use it, and what are the steps that you need to take. So I'm going to talk about all the different steps in this guideline uh, in detail and provide you with a holistic understanding of the goal and the function of this framework. So as you can see, the framework consists of several different yes/no questions. The reason that I decided to do this is because of the pilot study that I did with a bunch of my colleagues, and basically I interviewed them, higher education professors, researchers, independent researchers, and I realized that the need for this framework obviously exists, but we do not need a complex framework, meaning that it should be something easy if the goal is to use it as a tool to determine whether we need to use AI for a certain research task or not. So that's why after several different, revisions and different versions of it, I decided to make it look as simple as possible, which is a big challenge. But at the same time, include all those complex, uh, issues and the complex nature of using AI in research, but in a very meaningful and simple way, in simple terms, I would say. So that is the goal here. So I'm not gonna claim that this is the best model or this is like the most helpful one, but based on my experience and the kind of feedback that I received from people who have used it, it seems that it's a very good, easy to use, simple step-by-step guideline. That's how I can describe it. So the first question that you need to answer before deciding whether you need to use AI or not, and by the way, this can be applied to any other emerging technologies, but the focus of today's presentation is AI, is basically to identify the research phase for AI application. This is very important. Just imagine that you're working on a research project and you decide to use AI. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is, for what stage or what phase of my research I want to use AI? If you don't know the answer to this question, so basically the answer is no, because you haven't identified that. So as you can see in this graph, no leads to basically a very simple message: do not use AI, you're not ready. But if the answer is yes, we can move on. But let's just talk about what I mean by identifying this stage. Imagine someone is working on a research project and a big chunk of that project is dealing with a big literature review, literally hundreds of articles that need to be analyzed, maybe content analysis or any other types of analysis. So if you're dealing with that large, let's say, database of articles or books or dissertations that you need to analyze, so maybe you realize that, oh, I need a tool. This is not really efficient to just rely on me, or my colleagues or my co-authors, and it's kind of hard to do it traditionally. Let's call it like by hand. So maybe there is a tool. Maybe I can use AI. So that's a legitimate question that you can ask. And if the answer is yeah, I'm going to use it probably for this content analysis of these 200, 300 articles. That's just an example. So if that is the case, the answer to this first important question is yes, and you can move on. Let me give you another example. This is not like the previous one in which you know what you're doing, you're in the middle of the data collection, data analysis. This is about the beginning of a research project. So you know that you want to focus on, let's say, the effect of narrative analysis for narrative therapy, the effect of it on the usefulness of narrative therapy, let's say, versus traditional therapy, something like that. A very general idea. I'm just using this as an example. So you're in that very early stage. You just know that you want to compare these two methods. You don't know how, you don't know to what extent, you don't know the scale. So it's just a very raw idea that you have that it might be useful to see how narrative therapy versus traditional one in terms of like the usefulness, the benefits, in terms of the clients, patients' experiences. So you're in the beginning, you're in the earliest stage. You need a tool that can help you to brainstorm, maybe come up with more refined ideas. So you're like, okay, maybe I can use an AI as an assistant to help me to brainstorm or refine this study and maybe come up with different versions of the research questions, revise and refine them. So again, if that is the case, the answer to this first question, which is identify research phase for AI application, the answer is yes. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the phase should be for data analysis or literature. It can be at the beginning, but all I'm saying is that that is the first crucial step. You need to know where you want to use it. And again, this is based on experience of training a lot of higher education teachers, both in the US and a couple of other countries, where I'm dealing with a lot of faculty who are really interested in using AI, a lot of researchers, but they just don't know why and where and how. They just want to use it. And based on my experience, that doesn't usually lead to a successful experience. So if the answer is yes, obviously to the first question, you can move on. So the second question that I would like you to ask yourself before using any technologies, in this case AI, is to evaluate the potential benefits of that AI application. Let's say, let's go back to the first example about the literature review. So you know that you want to use an an AI platform to help you with content analysis of like 200 articles. You want to find the specific, maybe sections in that literature review, focusing on different moves and stuff like that in paragraphs, maybe you're doing genre analysis. So you basically know where you want to use it. Now the question is, the AI application that you identify and you want to use, do you know the potential benefits of it? And have you ever seen any other, research study, or have you ever met any colleague or read somewhere that this can be used for that specific purpose or not? So for that literature review, for example, a study, maybe not all the large language, models, not all the GPTs available can do a good job. Maybe there is a specific type of AI that you need to find. So basically, this stage, which is to evaluate the potential benefits of AI application, deals with identifying a platform or a tool that serves and can help you to solve that issue and the problem. So it can serve you in the best way possible for that specific purpose. So it is very important. Some of these AI platforms are good at doing some things and not good at other things. Let me give you another example. Imagine that you are struggling with finding resources for a specific topic and you have done everything that you could do. Still, you believe that there might be a way to find more resources. At least if you can get the titles of those articles, you can go over them and figure out if they are good resources for you or not. So the answer to the first question is yes, you want to know why you want to use it, where you want to use it, which is basically to finding references. Now we are in the second stage. You want to evaluate and identify which platform to use and evaluate the benefits. Let's say you choose, for example, OpenAI's ChatGPT. OpenAI's ChatGPT is not a good tool for finding resources and references because it can uh, hallucinate and create false and fake resources. The resources and the citations that OpenAI's ChatGPT recommends, most of the time they don't even exist. So that's what I'm talking about in this second stage. It is very important to choose a platform that can serve that specific purpose. So if you know the answer is yes, you have done your research, you can move on to the next step. But there's a question. So we're dealing with people who are not familiar with using AI that much for research purposes. Maybe this is their first experience. So is it fair to expect them to evaluate potential benefits of AI applications? So that is a very legitimate question. The answer is yes and no. Yes, because it can affect your research project in such a strong way that without taking precautions, you might be in trouble. So that is very important to consider. But at the same time, I said no, meaning that if you believe that you have found a good AI tool that can serve a specific purpose, and then you will give it a try. So basically, your initial answer to the second question is yes, but then you give it a try and you realize that this is not what you wanted, you can always go back and choose another one. So it is absolutely okay. This doesn't mean that you have to have the final version of the plan to use AI, but at least it gives us an idea that without having any knowledge or background about that specific tool, you're not going to succeed in using it, and it will create more problems for you. Let's move on to the third question, which is to assess the AI tool credibility and precision. This is very important. This is where we deal with validity and reliability. For example, the example that I gave you about OpenAI's ChatGPT and the references. So that means that the references and the citations that ChatGPT provides most of the time are not reliable. They are not credible. So that's all I'm talking about here. So if there's a new AI tool or platform you're not familiar with, you may want to do some research, even if you found it useful for a certain task. Still, you may want to do some research to realize if it is credible or not, if it is reliable and valid or not. I can give you one example without mentioning the name of the company. There was this AI tool claiming that it can paraphrase and summarize and somehow revise and refine your writing. Even very poor academic writing paragraphs could be turned into very nice, polished, academic style paragraphs. I gave it a try because I wanted to test it for a research purpose. And whenever I use an AI tool, then I try to use the integrity part of it. So I wanted to see if this platform is, taking all these nice sentences from sources without citing them, or is just computer generated paraphrase, which in that case, it was basically copy pasting from other resources about that topic. So that's not reliable, that's not valid, it's not credible because although it is doing what it is supposed to do, which basically, you know, guarantees a yes for the second question, it does what we want it to do. It's not doing it in an appropriate way and it's not credible and reliable and valid. So how can you figure out if a tool that you're using is reliable? You can do some research and you can basically, with some web research, I'm sure you will find articles if that's not a credible uh, tool to use. And obviously, it's always good to reach out to peers and other people. So it's very important, even if the AI tool and platform provides you with what you need to still check and make sure that it is credible, reliable, and valid. So if the answer is yes to that question, which for example is, let me give you one example. Brainstorming a research idea with ChatGPT. It is credible, I would say. It is reliable. It can help you to brainstorm ideas. So the answer is yes, then we can move on. Then we need to check the compatibility with research protocols. And here I'm not just talking about the IRB or ethics in research, depending on where you live in the world. You can have different terminology for that. But also with the internal research protocols that you as the researcher decided to have for your research project. But mostly it deals with ethics in research here, which is crucial, which is very important. So if you have submitted an ethics in research, letter, or in the US we call it an IRB application, and it has been approved, and you didn't mention that you want to use a specific AI tool to analyze the content of, let's say, a student's writings. So I would say you have to stop at this stage because, again, checking compatibility with research protocols, you're kind of violating those protocols because you didn't mention that you're going to use AI. Or there are many, many other examples that we can refer to. Even if you had it in your IRB or ethics in research application, but you didn't make the participants aware that their writings are gonna be analyzed by an AI platform, and you do not have consent from your participants. Again, in this stage, the answer is no. So you cannot use AI for that specific purpose. But if the answer is yes, again, you need to assess the ethical use of it. The ethical use of that AI platform might be different than the IRB and the ethics in research standards. That's the reason why I have two different questions for it, because you can be doing everything based on the IRB application. So the answer to that compatibility is yes. You informed your participants, let's say in an example in which you want to analyze second language writers' essays, for example. You have the consent form, it's based on the IRB protocols. But I can give you an example of where by assessing the ethical use of the platform, you realize that it's not ethical, although it might be compatible with the policies. So you're doing everything that you said in the IRB application. You have the consent form. However, you realize that this AI tool creates a copy of all the data that you put into their server and use it for training purposes. And you didn't inform your participants of that. So although they consent and they sign that consent form for you to use it, you didn't let them know, probably you didn't even know that that their data forever will be used by that platform. So that is just an example of an unethical use of AI, which might emerge even after checking all the IRB policies and protocols. So just personal experience, what I recommend is I know it costs some money, but always try to use the premium version of these AI platforms if possible, because they give you more options when it comes to data privacy. Second, for example, OpenAI ChatGPT, you can use temporary chat. So meaning that it will not store your data even for training their models. And also, I always recommend when you're dealing with data from human being or even maybe institutions, again, depending on the policies, to de-identify them or maybe use pseudonyms and then, process them with any AI tools. So if the answer to that assess ethical use of AI is yes again, then you need to verify the reliability of AI generated insights. Going back to that literature review content analysis example. So you knew that you wanted to use this for literature review. The answer was yes to the first question. You found a good platform that can do that. Let's say OpenAI's ChatGPT does a decent job when it comes to content analysis. So you already read that a couple of other people have used it and they published articles based on that. So it's reliable, it's credible. You have followed IRB protocols. So you're basically following all the research protocol guidelines and you have already de-identified the articles you're gonna evaluate, or maybe you have selected pseudonyms. So basically all the ethical issues you have taken care of those as well. Now it's the time to verify the reliability of the output that you receive after the platform analyzes the papers for you. So imagine that you ask OpenAI ChatGPT to analyze a certain article in terms of writing, genre analysis, and to give you some examples of, for example, different moves in abstract writing and things like that. So it's a good idea to go back and check at least some, if not most of those examples, because they may not exist in that paper. AI can make mistake as well. Sometimes, as I said, it can hallucinate and create false reports. So that's what I'm referring to as the verification of the reliability of the AI generated insight or the output. This is after you used it. So if you double check, for example, if there were certain part of an article that the tool basically highlighted for you and argued that this author used all these whatever writing strategies, and you see that in the original article, so perfect, it's reliable, it's not a false report. But if that's not the case, so the answer is no, then obviously you have to go back to that message, which is do not use this because it's not fair, it's not appropriate to use it. But if the answer is yes, which in most cases would be because I have developed these questions in a way that by the time you reach that stage, hopefully everything is working. So if the answer is yes, and you have done your analysis, you have the output, you basically cross-checked it, and you know that it's real, it's appropriate, then it's always a good time to review it with your co-authors if you do not have co-authors to review with peers or friends. It's always good to have a second view from a human being, to have somebody to look at it and basically provide you with ideas about the validity and the reliability of what you did with that AI platform. We even have this as a research data analysis, basically strategy and method, to have like peer peer review of the data and to see if people who have reviewed certain data they get the same kind of analysis, same sense if it is a qualitative research, for example. So it's a very legitimate strategy to use. And then if the answer is yes, congratulations, you have adopted and used and utilized the AI platform or the tool that you use in an appropriate, ethical, professional, and academic way. So as you can see, basically my whole goal with providing you and presenting you with this framework was to basically help you to have a guideline which is very easy to use. As you can see, all yes, no question. But at the same time, it has been designed in such a systematic way that when you reach the end of it, basically you can be sure that to a large extent you have done uh, the whole utilization of the technology properly, I would say. I'm not going to say 100% because this might have some issues as well. So other people may in the next few years come and kind of criticize this framework. I myself may improve it, but at this moment, I do believe that it's an effective framework that can help, especially novice researchers and graduate students. And when I say novice, it doesn't necessarily mean those with no research experience. It means those with little research experience with technology and AI. So that person might be an established researcher, but like traditional research, not this type of research. So over the past few years, we have seen a lot of tutorials and talks and workshops on the use of AI for research, but I haven't seen enough on the limitations of AI or basically what AI cannot do for us in research. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about some aspects of the limitations that AI platforms have based on research and based on my personal experiences. So the first one is the fact that AI lacks true originality or creativity. And what do I mean by that? So we as human beings, we are creative. We can come up with new and original ideas. And even if you think about the way we speak, sometimes we produce sentences that we have never heard of and probably has never been produced by anyone else. But that's not the case with these large language models, especially, at least in their current versions. They are not that much capable when it comes to creativity and originality. Yes, they can produce some sort of like artistic work or even, for example, poems or some pieces of, literary work, but still they are not that creative. And the ideas that come out of these AI platforms are based on the data, the existing data. So basically, they cannot invent new ideas. For example, as you can see in this slide, they cannot dream of a groundbreaking hypothesis on their own, and it's just something that we as human beings are capable of. So, what is your role as a researcher? Your role is to bring that spark of human curiosity to the research, and that is why I always refer to the AI platforms that we use as researchers as a collaborator, as a peer, as an assistant. So basically, what you're doing is you're using them as a tool to become a better researcher in this case. So definitely you need to bring your own creativity and curiosity to the table. The next slide, we need to talk about the ethical judgment as well. So yes, if you ask some unethical, inappropriate questions, some of these platforms will flag that question and that prompt, and they show a message that this is not appropriate. Yes, but that's again based on the existing data that they have and the model. So, but they do not have the ethical judgments that we as human beings have. And most of us work in areas that we're dealing with other humans in our research, like human subjects, which is a huge issue when it comes to ethics in research, and that's why we have protocols and procedures. So AI is not very good at. I'm not going to say it's not capable at all, but these platforms that we have, they're not very good at, considering the ethical aspects of research because they cannot obviously feel right versus wrong as they just follow the rules and patterns based on the data available. So look at the example here. They cannot decide if the study is fair or harmful. You can come up with a just for testing these AI platform purposes, you can come up with a research study which is basically cruel to the participants, and the AI would help you to kind of revise and edit your idea without basically telling you or warning you of the unfairness or the harmfulness that's going to happen in your study. So your role is always to apply ethical reasoning because of the fact that, as I said, you need to consider the AI as a collaborator, but you as the human being always have the control and you have the authority over that platform. So in the next slide, I would like to talk about the emotional insight, which I believe is also important, if not the most important aspect of it, at least to me, alongside the ethical part. It's just a human experiences, we can experience joy, we can experience fear, and these emotional experiences, especially for those of us working in social sciences and humanities, most of us, deal with research studies which are kind of based on our own experiences. So, and these feelings can shape our research project. But obviously, AI doesn't have feeling in a human sense, so they cannot basically empathize or interpret emotions deeply. So that's to me a limitation. And again, we're talking about the platforms that we have right now, February of 2025. So maybe in the future something happens. We don't know, but it's really interesting that a lot of people do not even consider this limitation, which to me is a huge limitation. So again, what is your role as a researcher? Your role is to capture the human side of the data, especially if you do, for example, qualitative, narrative-based, experience-based research. Your role and your voice should be foregrounded, even if you are doing research with the help of AI, basically an AI assisted research project. So in this slide, the contextual nuance, I would like to talk about the fact that AI also doesn't do a good job when it comes to connecting the dots in terms of like the cultural aspects of a research project. Uh, AI excels at patterns, not always the context. So cultural, historical, political, and social nuances can escape from the AI judgment and analysis. So if you're using an AI to uh, kind of analyze what somebody said, whether it was an interview or just a piece of writing or something that was produced by another human being, so there's a good chance that the platform you're using would misread or misinterpret what the actual intention was behind the words, especially because when you use the transcript of something that was said, so you are basically losing the tone and the intonation, and so the AI platform would definitely misread sarcasm, for example, or the traditions or cultural norms within the text. So again, as a researcher, you need to be able to connect the dots because AI can see these differences, can understand these cultural differences. So it is very important to have that in mind as well. And obviously, the most important one is the fact that AI can't and shouldn't be the researcher. This is very interesting because when ChatGPT was introduced, a couple of months after that, people started using it, and it was mind blowing. And a couple of research studies came out that they even listed ChatGPT as a co-author. I'm glad that publishers now, they have banned that, so they do not allow you to do that. You only need to acknowledge that you use a certain platform and to what extent, but you cannot list an AI platform as a co-author or author. So obviously AI can be the researcher. The reason is that AI cannot take responsibility for the consequences of a research project. It's just a tool, not a scientist. So it is your role to basically lead the research and use AI to support your research project. Obviously, AI can't ask why or pursue a passion-driven question. For example, it won't be able to chase a hunch without your input. So it is very important to consider the fact that AI is just a tool, and you should take responsibility for 100% of all the things that's going to happen because of your research and the consequences and everything. You are the researcher. AI is just a tool. Also, your unique value in research is another important thing that I would like to talk about. So we know that AI can handle, the heavy lifting and the heavy parts of especially statistical analysis and things like that, even searches or summaries. But at the same time, you need to bring the creativity, the ethical aspects, and the emotional aspects to the research, and that human nature of the research, which is crucial, which is very important. So I would argue that together, we as researchers and the AI as a tool, we can become a better team, we can become better researchers, but at the same time, we don't need to basically just rely on an AI platform. We need to own the process while we are embracing AI so that we can collaborate with it as a tool, as a collaborator, as a peer, but at the same time, we have the authority as the people who are doing the research project. Now that I talked about the limitations of using AI, it's the time to focus on some of the amazing things that we can do with AI as researchers. So let's start with data analysis. Whether you're doing a qualitative study or a quantitative study, you can definitely benefit from many AI platforms that exist. So let's just focus on analyzing large data sets. We know that it can be so time consuming and obviously it's a challenging task, even for studies that have many co-authors. So one of the advantages of using these large language models and especially AI platforms which are kind of designed specifically for data analysis, one of the advantages is that they can do these tasks very quickly. So that's an amazing thing that we can do with these AI platforms. But we can also focus on other aspects of data analysis. It's not just about analyzing from a numerical perspective, because they are very good at finding patterns, trends, and correlations as well. For example, AI tools can spot trends in survey responses, which is huge, especially for larger scale research studies. But again, your role as a researcher is to double check all the data analysis as well as interpreting the results and asking more and more questions from that AI platform so that you can come up with a more robust analysis. As researchers, we all know that literature reviews can be time consuming and at times overwhelming. Whether you're doing a lit review for a dissertation, for a thesis, or even it's part of an article that you're writing, or it's even an independent study like a systematic review study. So it's really time consuming. So it's always a good idea to find tools that can help you to accurately review the literature and save some time. So some of these AI platforms do a very good job at that. But still, in my opinion, the best way to handle literature reviews with AI is for you to find the articles yourself. Because as I said, many of these tools, they cannot do a good job with finding resources and they usually hallucinate. So one of the advantages of using AI for doing systematic literature reviews, for example, is to find the themes and find the gaps and basically highlight those studies that you yourself found. And these platforms can do that in a very short time that can save you a lot of time. But again, your role as the researcher is to evaluate the quality of the lit review analysis and obviously to see if what the AI is producing is relevant to your research study or not. Another advantage of using AI and another basically interesting thing that you can use with AI for your research project is to automate some of the repetitive tasks that you have in your project, whether it's like handling data entry or just formatting or transcribing. These platforms can do a very good job and they're very fast at doing that. So basically, automating can reduce workload and minimize errors and boost efficiency. But again, as the researchers, you are in charge of this project and you need to double check the quality of the output that you receive from these AI platforms. But as you can see, some of the examples here for transcribing interviews or organizing citations, these AI tools are amazing. But again, you need to consider all the ethical considerations. For example, if you're going to upload an audio from a participant, you have to follow your ethics in research or IRB protocols and get all the consent forms and everything. Or maybe it's a good idea to de-identify it and use the transcript, the de-identified transcript version of that audio file. So it all depends on what you want to do and the protocols you're following, but it's very important to consider the ethical aspects when it comes to analyzing, especially audios using these AI tools. Another interesting thing that you can do with AI platforms is to basically use them to simulate and basically predict models and patterns because they are very good at creating models to predict outcomes and simulate scenarios. So it's huge for some researchers because these tools can help them to save time and also can do some very complex tasks for researchers. They can basically test hypotheses and explore that what if questions to some extent, obviously. But again, as the researcher, you need to validate what you get from these platforms with real world data and consider that context. So I talked about the emotional aspect, the cultural background, and the context that usually are kind of missing in the analysis by these AI tools. But as a researcher, you can combine those with what you get from these AI tools and basically come up with a holistic analysis of your data. Collaboration and visualization is another interesting thing that you can do with these AI tools. Many AI platforms can create amazing eye-catching visualizations and graphs. They are, I would say, 10 times better than the tools that we had before, the emergence of these AI tools. So you can basically generate charts, graphs, maps, and many different things you can do with the visualization of your data. And basically, the goal is to make your data more understandable and comprehensible. So, for example, you can create interactive maps or infographics, and as the researcher, you're gonna analyze the quality, obviously, of the graphs, and check whether they align with your research goals or not. One more thing that you need to consider is the fact that if you're trying to submit your article to a specific journal, some journals do not accept the specific images created by AI tools. So you need to double check that before spending time on creating them with AI tools. So far in this presentation, I talked about various aspects of AI in education with a focus on academic writing. I covered a lot of different frameworks and theories in this regard, looked at the research, in recent years and what other researchers have found regarding the benefits and advantages and disadvantages of using AI for academic writing and research. And I also covered some of the limitations and some of the interesting things that you can do with AI as writers, as researchers. So I think it's a good time to put all those theories into practice and look at some of these AI platforms and see how they can really help us to become better researchers and better writers. Okay, in this part of the presentation, I'm going to use OpenAI's ChatGPT to basically show you how you can benefit from it as a research collaborator or research assistant. I'm using the 4.0 version of it, which is not a free version. The reason that I'm using this is because obviously it is more advanced and also it gives you more options when it comes to privacy. And if you don't want to, if you don't want OpenAI to basically download and use your data as part of the training for their model, so you have to go with the premium version of it. So I'm going to start by giving some info about a hypothetical research study that I'm doing. This is a prompt that I just pasted. I'm doing a research study on the effect of AI on graduate students' academic writing. I'm using narrative inquiry, and it is an experience-based study. I want you to be my writing slash research assistant. So this is the prompt that I'm using. Okay, it says that it's a fascinating study. To get started, could you provide more details on research question, data collection? So this is what I'm going to do here. This is the prompt I'm using. My research question is the effect of AI on academic writing for graduate students. I know it's not good and it is too broad. Can you help me refine it? So basically, it is telling me that yes, this is not a good research question. It's not a question. So it is asking me some questions. And all of this is happening because that first prompt I mentioned that I want you to be my research and writing assistant. I didn't ask the platform to do it for me, which wouldn't be appropriate, which wouldn't be ethical, and it will not be able even to do a good job if I ask this platform to do the whole research study or even the whole, for example, the plan for this study for me. So it is basically giving me some questions to think about and then recommending some research questions. Let's say I'm going to use number 5, which is how do AI writing tools shape the learning and identity formation of graduate students as academic writers. I add that I like this, but the focus of my research is not on the identity of writers. I want to focus on the learning experiences and the quality of the writing. So I want to show you how it can even refine and revise some of the questions that it had already produced for you. So now I have five more questions based on the prompt that I gave. So let's choose number one. How do AI writing tools influence the learning experiences and academic writing quality of graduate students? So I say I want to choose this one. Now tell me what the lit review should include. So as you can see in the prompt, I'm asking for guidance, for help, for assistance. Again, I'm not asking to do the lit review for me. Even if I wanted it to do it for me, it wouldn't be able to do a good job, as I said. But I said I want to choose this one. Now tell me what the lit review should include. So at least I can have a sense of the kind of themes and the studies that I need to review. And obviously, again, as the researcher, you are responsible, you are in charge of basically navigating the research study. And obviously, the best way is to read as much as you can papers in that field and on a similar topic to the one you are working on. So basically, it is giving me some ideas. So the theoretical frameworks. It's a good idea to use cognitive writing theories and so it's a constructive perspective. So you did a good job, even the technology adoption model. So that's a good idea. And now let's say that we have a draft and we want to work on that draft. So I'm going to paste a paragraph here. So I pasted a paragraph here which has a lot of grammatical issues and writing problems that's not coherent. So I did that on purpose. What I'm going to show you is how you can use AI responsibly to edit your work. There's a huge difference between rewriting, revising, and editing when it comes to your prompt. So if you ask for a rewrite, it would be considered 100% written by most of these AI detectors, and that might violate the ethical principles and the guidelines that you are supposed to follow. But you can use this AI platform as a tool to edit your work. It's still your wording, your sentences, sentence structures, but it can help you to identify grammatical issues or even writing issues. So here's what I'm going to say. So the prompt is, this is a paragraph I wrote. I want you to edit, not rewrite it. So let's see what happens. So the paragraph was AI in academic writing have many capability, like it generate ideas quick and helping with research by find sources fast. You can tell how many issues are there. So this is the edited version. AI in academic writing has many capabilities, such as generating ideas quickly and assisting with research by finding sources efficiently. It is also useful for drafting, helping a student save time, especially when facing a tight deadline. So that was for this sentence. It's good for drafting to save time for a student who has tight deadline. So it is not rewriting it for me in a sense. It's just editing it, and I basically obviously exaggerated and included so many mistakes in that piece of writing. But uh, I wanted to emphasize on the importance of choosing the right word when it comes to prompt writing. So you always want to avoid rewrite and try to use edit or at times maybe revise so that it's still the text has your voice, your structure, your style of writing, while you're also uh, checking for grammatical issues or any writing issues that may exist in your paragraph. Not every researcher works with texts. Some of us need to analyze videos and film. So there are a couple of AI platforms that you can navigate and use for analyzing videos and films. In my opinion, it's still they are not very good at especially identifying pauses and intonations and the meaning behind a pause or the meaning behind a certain way of saying a word or a sentence. But still, they can do a decent job and help you find specific patterns or specific scenes within a movie, or basically a video that you can upload to them. So the first one that I wanted to introduce is called screenapp.io, which basically allows you to upload a video. And I'm gonna just upload a video that I created, a very short video in which I humorously talked about the fact that it is very easy to use literature reviews and it's not time consuming. So that's what I said in that video, in a sarcastic way. So let's see if this AI tool can basically do a good job with analyzing that video. So I uploaded it. So you can see that you can get the premium version and everything, which I'm not going to do for the sake of this video. But what I can do is use the free version, and we can look at this part. So it says, what can I help with? Find key points, time commitment, paper reading, ease of completion. So these are just some of them do not make sense for this video. Let me just click on this general analysis. So here it shows that it is about literature review, main topic. This short transcript introduces a video about conducting literature review. The speaker aims to explain the process of conducting literature, which is true, that's what I said. So theme argument, ease of conducting literature review. The speaker asserts that literature reviews are the easiest thing a researcher can do. This sets the tone for the video and suggests a perspective contrary to common perception. So at least it identified what I said as somehow controversial, which is good, but I think it still kind of missed that sarcastic tone that I used in my talk. But it did a decent job, as I said. So as you can see, it provides you like with an analysis, and I think you can do several other stuff with it, like click on key points, summarize the key points. It gives you what the speaker said, like creates time lapse and things like that. But it's all obviously limited because I'm using the free version of it. Another one which created a lot of noise, a lot of people were really happy when this was introduced, is a product, Google Cloud or Google Video Intelligence API or Google Cloud API as they call it. So it's basically a video AI that you can use in order to be able to analyze videos and find the specific things in videos. It does a better job than the other ones that I've seen, but obviously it can be pricey as well. So this is another tool that can be used for videos and films. There's another one called WhereNova.ai, which is a video content analyzer. Again, very similar. You can basically look for certain elements in a film, in a video that you upload. So this can be another useful tool. There is this one as well called State, which is another video analyzer software that can help you to analyze the content of a video. So now that I covered some of the available AI tools for analyzing videos and films, I think it's a good time to look at a platform which can help you to design beautiful graphs and charts for your research projects. So it is called napkin.ai. So when you log in, I just logged in with my Gmail account. You can create a new napkin, and you can do two things. You can create a blank one or draft one with AI. So basically, the blank one gives you more flexibility what you want to add. So you will basically enter your data and what you want to do with the graph. You can do a lot of different things with that blank one. But just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and draft one with AI. So there are like some examples. Yeah, I'm just going to click on one, the best practices for hiring interview. So you can basically write a prompt to generate anything. So I'm just going to click on this as an example, and it will create uh, basically like a short essay or something. And then I can choose any part of this and create the graph. All I need to do is to highlight. And as I said, for your own research projects, obviously you will provide the data to this platform. But I'm just doing this for the sake of the video. So you basically select, I just selected these five whatever stages for conducting the interview. And then you just click on this button here, which is generate visuals. And in a few seconds, it's going to create a graph or a chart for you. And it gives you unlimited options here. You can change the style. You can do many different things here. You can create very creative graphs. So all you need to do is to have the data, have the information that you have, come and paste it here, and then use this tool to create more engaging and more interesting, I would say, graphs and charts. Obviously, the ones that PowerPoint or Microsoft Word create, they are also good as well. They're very classic, but I find these very interesting and more engaging, I would say. As you can see, there are probably tens, if not hundreds, of different models that you can use. So there is one more important thing that we need to discuss, and that is the acknowledgement of the use of AI in our work. Whether you are working on your dissertation, thesis, an essay, an article, basically any writing piece, and you use any AI platform. So it's always a good idea to include that in your acknowledgement so that later, if your professor is using an AI detector or the journal has an AI policy, so they can see that you already acknowledge that, whether they accept that or not, like depending on the policy of the journal or that professor for a certain class. So we don't know because people are different. But all I'm telling you is that you have to acknowledge the fact that you use AI platforms. But how can you do that? I have like three examples here to show you. So as you can see, the first one, let me just read it. The author acknowledges the use of, for example, GPT-4 from OpenAI in assisting with qualitative data analysis, particularly in identifying themes and patterns within the narrative. So here, not only are we acknowledging the fact that we used an AI platform, but also we are specifying in what sense and what areas of this research paper we use the platform, which in this case was GPT-4 for analyzing and identifying themes in a qualitative study. So the second part of the acknowledgement is even more important. However, all interpretations and conclusions remain the sole responsibility of the author. So again, we talk about ethics of using AI. So this is part of it, that we are making sure that we reviewed everything and we take responsibility for that piece of writing, although part of it was analyzed or created by an AI platform. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings and we need to, review the work that we're going to submit, whether to a journal or to a professor. It's a class assignment, so we are 100% responsible. So the second example, the author acknowledges the use of AI-powered tools, including GPT-4 and associated data visualization software in generating graphs and figures. I showed you how you can basically use AI platforms to generate figures. So here we need to acknowledge that. And again, the second part, which is important, all final interpretations and representations were reviewed and confirmed by the author. So the last one, the author would like to acknowledge the use of GPT-4 from OpenAI for enhancing the readability of this manuscript under human oversight. This one is important because even a lot of people who do not use AI platforms for data analysis or visualization might use it as an editor. So this is how they can basically acknowledge the fact that they used it. However, the second part, however, the author remains ultimately responsible and accountable for the whole content of the work. Even if you use the AI platform to help you to expand an idea and use it in just one aspect of your research project, one specific section, again, you can revise any of these three samples and acknowledge that it's important to have that in your paper, and it's good for you to keep you safe when it comes to dealing with issues regarding the use of AI in writing, because still people have different ideas. Some people are totally for it, some people are totally against it. So this can help you to make sure that you have already mentioned that you use different AI platforms for various reasons. Now that we talked about all the amazing things that we can do with AI using the platforms that I introduced, and obviously there are thousands of platforms that we didn't cover in this presentation, I think it's a good idea to talk about probably one of the final stages of a research project, which is just presenting it. Sometimes we would like to have fancier slides. So there are some AI platforms that can help you to achieve that goal. Gamma.app is one of them. As you can see here, I just created one as an example. So you can see the slides are kind of, I would say, more beautiful than the ones you can create with PowerPoint. So it's very easy to work with. It gives you two options. One is to ask the platform to create the whole presentation and the text, which obviously to me is useless because you want to present what you want to present. The second one is you give the text or upload a file to the platform, and it basically enhances the structure and the pictures and the formatting of it for you. So I think it's a good platform to use if you're interested in making different types of presentations. There are a couple of other tools as well that you can use. One of them is frame.io, which is very similar to gamma.app. So it also creates projects like presentations for you. Now that we reached the end of this presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Rajai again for her kind invitation, and I would like to thank everybody who is going to watch this video sooner or later. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you the best, and I hope you will navigate all these tools, which can help us to become better writers and researchers. So I thought it would be fun to end the video with a song, which will be created by an AI platform called Suno. And I already have a prompt, which is create a song about a training that provided guidance on responsible use of AI for research and writing, the advantages and limitations of AI, and the potential of AI to enhance research. So all I need to do is to click on this create. So the songs are ready. You can even choose the genre and kind of play with it. It can create very interesting songs for you. I'm just gonna play this, and with this song, I wish all of you the best, and I'm really thankful that you made it to the end of this long presentation. Thank you so much.
Learning to use new AI tools, guiding us right, no bending rules. Research with care, writing so true, smarter every day, me and you. Know the limits, know what's best. AI's here to help, not to test. Push the boundaries, but stay real. With each breakthrough, feel the thrill. We got the power. Oh, yeah. Smart achievements everywhere. AI's our partner in this ride, guiding us with insight, side by side. Enhancing our research game, finding patterns, naming names, rearrange. Way I thought they could say. Diet is so vast, now in our reach. Timely solutions that we preach. Mind and machine working tight, fueling progress in the night. We got the power. Oh, yeah. Smart achievements everywhere. AI's our partner in this ride.